to another episode of Good Luck Vista. So tonight I want to talk about the concept of collaboration versus comparison. In a program similar to the one that I'm currently in, you're in a cohort with people, and so it might be the idea of like, oh, well, this person's doing this person's doing that. And so I really want to hone in on making sure that you're not forcing yourself to be kind of prioritizing the actions of others over the work that you are doing. So let's go back. Okay, comparison, to me, I feel like comparison is like, I look at the other Vista that I'm working with, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they've done this event, they've done that, they've done this, they've done that. Okay, what have I done? Okay, oh my God, I haven't done enough. Let me do it. No. Collaboration, I see it as more so, oh, this Vista has this event coming up. Let me reach out to him or her and be like, hey, let's get together. I would like for, my site to participate in this. Let me know what you think. Let's follow that concept. So when we're looking at comparison versus collaboration, I think that a lot of times, especially when working in like a service-based industry, you're kind of like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm doing this or I'm doing that or I'm doing that. And then you look at everybody else around you and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not doing enough. You are doing enough. Don't think about it that way. So many times, especially when you're kind of like the new people on the block, you kind of look at everybody else and you're like, oh, I need to make sure that I'm completing this. And if this person did that, I need to make sure I'm doing that too. And that's not how it should be. It should be more focused on the collaboration portion. When you're working with nonprofits and you're working with, different agencies, it's a lot of times about that connection and that networking. So if you're making those collaborations, you're like, okay, you know what? When this comes up, I know who I can reach out to, But if you're always focused on what the next person's doing, you're not emphasizing enough on that building of that network. And so that can end up hurting you more versus you kind of looking at the next person like, hey, let me see if I can, copy what they're doing. Or, you know what, maybe I'm not doing enough. Let me see if I can catch up with them. You don't have that much time in your service term. You have a year. And so if you spend it, focus so much on like, what is this person doing? What is that person doing? You're not building off of that. You're not building off of what you do have. Now, if you spend it, focused on collaborating and working with other Vistas, you are building. Because guess what'll happen? If you've already built up that relationship with this Vista at that site, and you're like, you know what, hey, that site might be good for our back to school drive. We can have it there. Okay, let me reach out to them. That connection's already made. You've already established, that site as a resource. So it's like, okay, cool. All I have to do is plan out logistics, send them the information, send my supervisor information. That's done. But if you haven't focused enough on, building up that relationship, it's kind of like, it's a wasted network link in a sense. Like you wasted that link towards that opportunity. Now, if you're so honed on like, oh, well, I've done 4 events this month. Why hasn't this Vista done as many? Well, maybe this Vista, this particular month, they've had to focus more on like this programming. So it's not an event, but it's programming. Now, next month, they may have 6. And then, boof, you spend all this time focused on what they weren't doing in one month versus the other, that you haven't focused enough on what you could be doing. That could have been an opportunity for you to say, hey, it looks like they have less on their plate. Maybe I can reach out to them for them to help me. They can. But if you're focused on the comparing part versus the collaboration, you won't know if they do have the time to help you or not. You focused on the wrong end of it. And I know that a lot of times it is kind of tough, especially being like the first young professionals on the block, because everybody's kind of looking at you like, oh, are you capable of doing this? Like, can you do it? Can you do it? Can you do it? Should we trust you to do it? And it's like, wait, no, you should. But if I focus so much on you comparing me to others or me comparing myself to others, I can't build up that relationship to collaborate with you, to show you the work that I can do. And I know it can be tough. Trust me. I've gone through this past year too, of kind of looking like, am I doing enough here? Or, you know what, maybe this person is right. Like, I haven't been doing enough. And it's like, no, you have. If you actually sat down and you went through every month and went through everything that you've done in your term, you've done more than enough. Okay? You've done the work. And in my head, I'm always kind of like on the back end where I start comparing myself. And I'm like, no, never mind. I'm not going to do that. Because guess what? If I was not doing my work and I was not giving the best version of me to this service term, I'm pretty sure one of my 2 supervisors would have called me out on it and said, hey, girl, we don't know what's going on, but you're not doing enough. Okay, cool. But then you have to keep in mind, they're coming from a perspective of just looking at you. They're not comparing either. So if they're not comparing you, you should be comparing yourself. You will quickly learn that collaboration is the way to go. And so if you know, like, hey, this person's really good with marketing, let me reach out to them. Hey, can you collab with me on this? Because I know that, you know, marketing is your skill set and it's not my skill set, but I am trying to get this done. Okay, cool. You fast tracked so much outside of just kind of sitting and sulking and looking versus putting in action, collaborating, and getting it done. And I know that a lot of times we have the biggest problem in the comparison part, because we spend so much time together and we do so much work in our community that you're always looking like, am I supposed to be here? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Am I doing enough? Wait, this person's doing more than me. Or, you know, this person's not doing as much as me. We're always looking at it that way. And if we stop for a second and we're just like, yeah, you know what? Actually, no, I am. Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's fine. We would get so much more done in our service term, and also be able to set up those systems that everybody's talking about building capacity. We would be able to build that for longer terms, more sustainable ones, if we stop the whole let's look at others and then look at ourselves and just focus on ourselves. And I know that it is based on attitude. Like, that's one of those things I can acknowledge, that a lot of times comparison versus collaboration is based on everybody's kind of attitude that's involved in it. But a lot of times it's just kind of one of those situations where it's like, you never really know what a person's thinking or how they feel about something until you do have a conversation with them. And so if you're making an assumption that somebody's judging you or, is, trying to be funny acting because they don't think you're doing enough, or they don't think you've accomplished this when you should have, you'll never be able to, kind of change that perspective and look at it as an opportunity for collaboration because of the attitude that you do come into the situation with. I don't have a step-by-step on how to, let's challenge that or change that perspective, other than you have to give it time. And everybody involved has to be willing to change that perspective. So you can't just walk into a working relationship and you're like, hey, I know you've been feeling like I haven't been doing enough, and if you walk into with that, it's going to be hard to walk away from that idea of comparing versus putting the opportunity out there for a collaboration. But if you walk into it with the idea of, hey, I am not 100% sure if you do have the time to do this, but if you do, can we work on it this way? It's like, okay, the opportunity's out there. You've acknowledged the other person. You've acknowledged the possibility that they do or don't have free time, and you aren't making that assumption that they just should have free time or they shouldn't have free time, and you're setting up the foundation for the collaboration. I think aside from that, my kind of biggest takeaway from this year when it comes to the idea of collaboration versus comparison is just don't. Like, I know for me, I am a huge person on like kind of always looking at what other people think of me. And so I've worked really hard on that this year as far as just focusing on my service work and focusing on what I am doing within my term. And it's worked for me, but I know for other people that can be a hard thing to, you know, kind of be focused on. But just do your best to make sure that if you are comparing, you're only comparing yourself to yourself, nobody else. If you want to see growth, you measure it within yourself, not based on anybody else and their actions. Now, we do have target measurements that you do have to accomplish, so yeah, you will have to use that. But as far as another person's actions, whereabouts, all that stuff, don't base it off that. Only base what your growth has been off of where you saw yourself from the beginning to whatever point you're looking at. And that's all. You will have plenty of times to reflect. And so make sure those reflections aren't based on the idea of, you know what, I haven't done as much as Rebecca. Okay? I should have done as much as Rebecca. Versus, you know what, June was a good month for me, or May was a better month for me, and June was a little bit rough. And so I learned this, and I made this, you know, collaboration happen between my site and this place. And then you can kind of look at it as what you should be taking from it versus what you didn't take, you know? If you focus so much on like what I didn't get out of it versus what I did, you won't be able to really take a look at what your growth within yourself is versus looking at everybody else's growth. And so with that, good luck, VISTA.